All right, on this episode of Bowks Talking Bouts, excited to be talking to an individual set to make a big return at Unified MMA 48, and that all goes down on December the 16th. A welterweight bout with Michael Hill and Pat Pytlik, and good getting to talk to Pat again after a little bit. How's your day going so far, man? Seems pretty busy.
Yeah. Today was pretty busy, but I just finished work and I got an hour before I have to go to the gym, and then that'll be the rest of my day.
Yeah, and I mentioned from the top that you're making that return. It's been a little bit, like you had a boxing fight like just over 3 years ago, but even with MMA, it's been a touch longer than that, and getting back to it in the unified MMA fold there, the last MMA fight being almost like four some odd years ago. So how are you feeling just getting ready to come back in general?
Oh, I feel great. I feel like I'm on the path, right? It just sucks being injured for so long. You know, you're not sure. You always have the doubts in your mind, right? But no, I feel good now, so I'm healthy.
Yeah, I saw you had some posts where you were talking about how, like, at one point you were, like, barely able to walk, and, like, the pain was pretty excruciating and stuff like that. Like, how long would you say the recovery process was? Like, when did that, first really start ramping up? It seems like it's been going on for, like, a few years.
Yeah, well, I always, I think when I first injured it, I was 21, and I finished college, but I booked a flight to Thailand, and I was like, well, my back's fucked, but, I saved all this money, and, I'm not going to miss out going on this trip. So I remember being in Asia, and I couldn't throw one right kick, because the pain was so bad in my back. So all I did was throw left kicks. And I spent a lot of time there, but my left kick got crazy good and crazy strong. It's like my dominant, it's like my most dominant weapon, which is crazy. And I remember the first fight I had over there, the guys that were coaching me, they didn't end up cornering me for my fight. They got me this fight there. We weighed in, we did everything, and they had some little kids in my corner. And I was wondering why they weren't cornering me, and it turned out they were gambling on the other guy, because my training was so shitty, because I was I was injured, so I wasn't really putting much heart into it, and I was skipping a bunch of the runs. So I guess they just thought I was garbage, and then I ended up having the fight, and I ended up knocking the guy out, and I performed, because once the adrenaline hit me, I didn't feel anything. And they were all pissed off at me on the drive home, and I didn't understand it. But I found out later they all bet on the other guy. And then I was there with one of my friends, Adam, and he was a Canadian guy too. So, but he actually was shitty, and he fought the following weekend. So this time they said, "Well, this guy hasn't been putting in much effort. Let's bet on the Canadian." And then Adam, who actually was crap, ended up getting knocked out really bad. So they lost twice, and they didn't even want to take us to the hospital because Adam got his face all sliced up, and I had to argue with the guys to drop us off in the hospital. I told them, we'd find our own way home. It was just funny. But anyways, yeah, long story short, that's where it all started. And when I went from Muay Thai to MMA, it kind of went away, but it was just a lingering injury, and then it was always lingering, but it progressively got worse, and until the point where it basically crippled me. So
yeah, that must have been a wild recovery process, just to go from, like, that point you were saying there to feeling ready to return back to competition. And I saw you had a post where you were talking about, like, your late uncle saying, like, you don't know, like, what you have until you lose your health. Like, how does it feel to, I guess, like, have that experience where it feels like you've lost the health and the identity as an athlete, and then to have both of those things kind of come back? Like, I would think there would be, like, a lot of gratitude and perspective and things like that.
Yeah, well, it's horrible, right? Because, like, if you think about it, well, I mean, I've been an athlete my whole life, right? So whatever emotion I've ever felt, I always had something to lean on, right? Like, if you're going through something, you just hit the gym, and things get better, right? It's, people who don't work out, I don't know how they live their life, or people who don't have passion. They just they can just work a 9 to 5 and get hammered on the weekend, and they don't have no passion. They don't have any, like, I don't understand people like that. I don't know how you can fall into that trap, because when I didn't have athletics and I had all this chaos going on in my head, right? I just, it was very, very low point for me, right? I didn't really drink much from, I don't know, the time that I was 17 all the way till maybe 27. And then, I started winning. So I would wait till I'd have a fight, and then I'd have a reason to drink and party and celebrate. But I kept it under control. But once I got injured, I was like, well, fuck it, I want to kind of relive the youth I never really had, like the youth I was supposed to have in my 20s. And I was just so fucking disciplined. I didn't go out, and I didn't really enjoy things like the way most people did. So, that didn't help me either, because, I was in a bad place. And then now I'm going out and I'm boozing, and it's just a downward spiral, right? And then COVID made everything even worse, because then you're secluded, right? But actually, COVID was a blessing for me, because it forced me to heal, because as bad as my back was, I wouldn't accept it. I still was trying to, I took that boxing fight. I couldn't walk without severe pain. And I'm getting ready to fight a guy in a sport that was his sport, that I've never even competed in at a professional level, and I didn't lose either. So we got a draw, but it was like, it was a war, right? But COVID forced me to heal, actually. That and the experts I saw, but it really forced me to heal. So.
Well, it's great that you had that sort of like realization and whatnot, and like, I mean, I feel like a lot of people almost got into the, drinking more and whatever, like indulging in that, like with the, pandemic kind of coming in and stuff like that. But it was cool that it was like almost the opposite for you. Like it was like a revelatory moment, like, hey, I need to, get things back on track here.
Yeah, well, it was also it kind of made me heal by mistake, because I was still going down the bad path, but I was going down the bad path where I couldn't go to a gym even if I wanted to. Like, I never got vaccinated, right?
Yeah.
So I just, my personal choice. I don't know.
Sure.
Anybody can believe what they want to believe, but, I never got vaccinated. I never got sick. So, whatever, right? That's just what I believe. But, yeah, I started healing, and then I was like, well, fuck, I can train again, but none of the gyms are open, and if they are open, I'm not allowed to go there because I don't have some passport or some bullshit, right? So I probably could have returned a year ago back to the scene, right? But just the way everything worked out, I'm returning now.
Yeah, and you mentioned like getting ready to, train later on. Like, whereabouts are you training at nowadays? Because like before, when we'd done interviews like pre-pandemic and stuff like that, you were mostly getting in work at Shaved Bears, but it seems like you're more in like the Kitchener kind of area now. Like, whereabouts are you training for this one?
Yeah, so I have a house. I live in Waterloo, Ontario. It's where I'm from.
Cool.
But I'm training in Etobicoke Martial Arts 10th Planet.
Oh, nice.
And then I'm also training at Stratford BJJ. And then I'm also training at TKO Fighting Arts and then TNT Boxing. So I'm all over the place, right? I know where some of the best guys are, and I'm just putting myself in the fire, right? Because I know, like, I can get work with really good boxers and kickboxers, and then the jiu-jitsu, Ryan O'Shea, he used to be, one of the coaches at Toronto. I think it was Toronto BJJ. It was at one of the very top schools in Ontario, and he's a hell of a coach, hell of a guy. And then Micah Brakenfield, he's at 10th Planet, and he's just a stud. So, yeah, I've surrounded myself with a lot of talented guys.
Yeah, and you were talking earlier about, like, how immersed you've been in, like, the striking arts. Like, you had that, like, first kind of foray in boxing, but obviously a depth of, like, Muay Thai experience before that. Like, would you say the biggest area of refinement since, like, the last time we saw you would be, like, in the submission grappling? It seems like you're talking about a lot of, elements that would build on that part of your game.
Yeah, for sure. Especially wrestling, like the wrestling aspect too. But I've always actually been pretty good at wrestling. I just, I didn't really get to showcase it against Lindsay. I don't even like telling people because it does sound like an excuse, but I did hurt myself before that fight. And I only went through with that fight because I felt obligated to, because I had all my friends that they all booked, hotels and flights and meals and all this, they already paid for all this shit, and they bought tables, and I had like 40 people flying out. So to pull out, 2 weeks before the fight, because it was 2 weeks before the fight, so I just figured if I took it easy, I'd be okay come fight night. And, I was in the dressing room, and the first time I didn't have my confidence, and I was like, oh fuck, I can't warm up properly, and now I'm in the main event, and it just got to me, right? And then because if you watch that fight, just coming out, the first jab I hit him with almost knocked him out. I dropped him with a jab, and then he just hugged my hips the entire time and took me down. And I got cocky too because he was trying a couple submission attempts, and I was talking shit because I kept escaping. And I blew that fight for myself. He was the better, no excuse. He was the better man that night, but I lost it for myself, right? And that's when there's no redos, right? When you're a fighter, it's you can't take it back. So, but anyways, I never told him that, but all of my coaches knew that I was hurt, and I went through with it. Because that's what a man does at the end of the day. You sign a contract, you go through with it. At least that's what I believe.
Yeah, no, you stuck to the commitment and everything like that, and I'm sure lessons could be, taken from something like that, even though you don't necessarily get the ideal outcome and that win-lose binary, but maybe a lesson for the career going forward thereafter.
Yeah, it would definitely cost me though. I probably could have rehabbed from that. I probably could have rehabbed a lot quicker, because I always bounce back, a minor to mid back injury. But this is the first time, if you look at the photos of me, you can see that my body looks twisted and I look crooked, before the fight even starts. That's the, because I hate when people say shit like this, when they say, oh, I lost and this is why I lost. It's not why I lost. I lost because he was the better fighter. I've already said that, but it didn't help my confidence that I was injured before the fight, and it didn't help that I was in pain warming up, right? But the proof is if you just look at my body in those pictures and then just compare that to any of my fights, and you'll see that I look crooked. My whole body looks crooked, and I actually had to do a lot of physio to realign myself. But anyways, yeah, I'm healthy now, so.
But yeah, it just goes to show how much of that, mindset and everything like that can really play into fighting, just where your confidence and temperament can be at. And certainly something like that would, very much affect that. And I guess to the point of the mentality / emotional state heading into certain fights, how much does it inform your performance to be that partisan sort of favorite, just because this being more of an Ontario centric kind of card? You were talking about being in the Waterloo area, Unified making a big push into Ontario for the first time. Does that further inform your performance? Obviously you're motivated, but does it galvanize things a little bit more, knowing that you'll be that crowd favorite on the fight night?
No, to me, no, I don't care if I'm the favorite. I don't care if I'm the villain. To me, that part doesn't even matter. When I'm warming up and I'm walking out, I don't really notice it. It sounds kind of weird, but I don't really. I'm not really paying attention to people cheering or people saying crazy shit in the audience. Whether it's for me or whether it's against me. It doesn't do anything to me. Maybe it should, but no. If I'm focused, I'm focused. I mean, it's nice. It's nice that I have way more people come in. I'm definitely Sonny's top ticket seller. I have a lot of people come to support me, right? But yeah, I don't know. I don't know if it will aid me or if it won't, because I mean I had a lot of Muay Thai fights, I guess, in Kitchener, and I think I went when I was an amateur, and I think I was like 16 or something. I think I went like 2-1-1. So I don't know if it helped me or if it didn't help me, but yeah, fighting is fighting. Where I'm fighting, I don't know. Maybe it will. We'll find out.
Yeah, but in terms of like where you're fighting, like I was seeing in a recent article that like, and you kind of talked about it before too, like almost overlooked that last fight with Jake Lindsay, and we're kind of like eyeballing like the UFC more so, and it's curious because also from like what I'm reading, like you still very much have like goals you want to achieve, etc. I mean, does the mindset kind of change a bit in that sense? Like, I mean, in that previous instance, you're kind of like looking at the UFC. Does the mindset maybe just like completely isolate itself to this next one and then take it step by step, or like what do you think about all that, I suppose?
Oh well, yeah, I made a mistake. Yeah, I overlooked Lindsay, but I'm not overlooking Hill. Like I know he's a good athlete. He's got the experience. He's tough. He's I remember, like I said, I remember seeing him in the Ultimate Fighter. Like he's already done a lot of cool shit, and he's a tough guy. And I know we're gonna have a hell of a fight. And like that's what I like. I like guys like him. So I just hope all of his medicals are good and everything comes in on time and everything works out. That's the only thing I'm really worried about. I sold a lot of tickets. The most devastating thing would be right now if for some reason he couldn't compete. So, because I know all my medicals are good and I'm ready to go. But yeah, if I would be devastated if he didn't show up, because I know he had a issue before with Shane Campbell. So I just hope that there's no issues this time.
Yeah, I mean, I think, well, I mean, because you're like in the Ontario area, but yeah, the medicals can be a little more stringent out here for that kind of thing.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, I mean, like you said, I mean, you knew who, he was heading into this and like had watched previous fights and stuff like that. So I would think when the bout offer initially came your way, you were fairly excited. Is that kind of like a fair characterization?
Yeah. Well, I thought I was fighting somebody else, and then Sonny said it was somebody else, and then he said it was somebody else again, and then he settled on Hill. So I was like, okay, cool. I was like, are you sure this is in? Like, can I announce it? Because I'm pretty excited, And yeah, but yeah, I'm definitely grateful for the opportunity, and the best man's going to win on the night.
And just like, I mean, I imagine like the focus is very much just on this one, as we were talking about, and just such a big moment getting to be back after like a few years out of the picture. But just with you getting back to it, like, is there a certain sense of like what you would like to achieve, even like strength of schedule wise, in the new year, just as we're kind of approaching 2023? Like, do you have an idea for how you would ideally like to see the coming year pan out competitively?
I'm trying not to think about anything like that. That's what got me in trouble the last fight, overlooking anything. So for me, it's just one at a time. I'm just worried about Hill right now. This isn't somebody just to look past, right? Like he wasn't very successful in his last couple fights, but he's still a very dangerous, talented fighter. And if anybody says otherwise, they don't know the guy. So
Yeah, no, I mean, totally like accurate there. I mean, he's definitely like shown himself over the years, captured like some good regional titles with like XFFC and things of that nature. So yeah, for sure. But in terms of like the, I guess, like stylistic aspects of what he brings to the table, like what do you think he really does well as like a fighter? You talked about like some of the attributes and as far as like his toughness and things on that end, but in terms of like the actual like X's and O's of like what he does like with his techniques, like what do you think he does well?
I know he's hard to take down. He's hard to submit, and he didn't really get a chance to showcase his stuff in his last fight, so it's hard to tell. But I don't know. He's wild. He's a brawler. He likes to fight, right? Like, I have nothing but respect for guys like that. Like I like guys that risk it all, and if it doesn't work out, well, at least they went for it, right? But a lot of times it did work out for him. So Yeah, no, he's a dangerous fighter. I gotta be my best. So.
Yeah, and it seems like it's like a great time for you to be returning and stuff like that, and like a good opponent to be, returning against and whatnot. So yeah, definitely an exciting kind of dynamic there. And you were kind of talking about like more like family getting to be at this, family and friends and stuff like that. And in past, we've talked about how you're a dad and stuff like that. Like, do you think are the kids going to be coming out to this one? Is that not something they care to watch? Because it's like I feel like sometimes people have that like tell me about it after the fact sort of thing. Like they would rather not see something like that. But some people can also be on the end of being really excited about that. So like, what's the dynamic in that regard?
Well, this is the first time my daughter is going to come and see me fight ever. And yeah, I've been fighting her whole life. So this is the only fight that this is going to be her first fight to see her father. So that's exciting. And I mean, what an opponent I have for this fight, right? Like, I honestly, a part of me hopes it's just like a great war for 3 rounds. Like, I hope it's like the fight of the night that like everybody talks about. That's what I hope. Like obviously winning is important, but how you win to me also is equally as important. So. But yeah, like a short and sweet fight too, that'd be great. But for the ones that like the Viren fight that I had, I loved that. That was my favorite because it went 5 rounds before I got him, right.
Yeah.
But even if but then part of me was like, I wish I didn't get him. Like I'm glad I won, but I wanted to go a little bit longer. We finally both just said we're just gonna go in the middle, but we didn't say it to each other, but you could tell by our body language. It was like, okay, that last round, we were just going to strike because we were grappling round 1, and he was grappling me round 1. So, and then round 2 until I put it on him, and then 3, we were tied up, and then 4, he almost subbed me, right? So I would say it was like 2-2 going in the last round, and like I liked that, right? That was for me, it was something to be proud of. You just go out there and you smash the guy in round 1, and what do you learn, right? It's just, I don't know. Yeah, of course, I love it, but it's something to be said about a hard-earned, fight where there was something to overcome, and yeah, that's just a little bit, I guess, into my mindset.
Yeah, and I do remember that fight. That was one of the more entertaining fights I've ever seen live. I felt like that whole night in general was pretty crazy there. So you're almost looking for like that kind of performance in this one, in a sense, like that Byron Phillips performance, that kind of like memorable fight of the night dynamic that you laid out.
Yeah, like I always had like, even when I was a young kid, even sparring and training in the gym, I always seemed to attract people. Like people would always stop and watch, and I don't know what it ever was about me. I wasn't always the most talented guy, but I always go for it, right? I always try to give it 100, like everything I have, whether I'm gonna get him or he's gonna get me. Like it's just the way I'm built. Like Byron kind of gets a lot of shit. I know when I was in that armbar, he got a little bit of smoke that he couldn't get the finish there, but I was willing to break my arm when I went for that, that escape that I did. I was very willing to break my arm. It was just my mindset in the moment, It was the same thing with Lindsay when he had me in the sub. The side that I was supposed to jump over, I couldn't because the fence was there. And I was trying to create space. He just had his hands in such a good position. I knew for a fact I was going to go unconscious, but I wasn't going to tap. I was waiting. I was either going to get out or he was going to kill me. Like that was my mindset. And it was the same thing with the Byron fight. Like even though I escaped, he did damage my elbow probably for a year. I definitely couldn't do an arm wrestle with my left hand. Because even just a little bit of pushing on that joint gave me pain. But I'm it's like an alter ego when I fight. I'm a very nice person. I'm not I'm like a violent type of guy, but when I fight, I'm very extremely violent, and I'm not gonna quit. So, just who I am.
And that very much comes through in your fighting approach, even from my, outsider kind of perspective. And it's cool too because, like, I mean, Unified had like a great high quality show when you last fought for them, but just like getting on UFC Fight Pass and some of these other aspects, like even deepening the roster and stuff like that, it just seems like a great, set of circumstances whereby like even people who haven't been that familiar with, like, say, the Unified product before, like a lot more people outside of that core fan base can really see what you bring to the table too. Is that something that you think about? Does that excite you in any kind of way, or more rooted in like the crowd dynamic we were talking about before, where you're like, it doesn't really matter one way or the other?
Yeah, no, I mean, more eyeballs, I guess, is always good, obviously, Um, yeah, I don't know. I don't know how it makes me feel because it hasn't happened yet, but I'm sure I will. Yeah, I'll be able to answer that the next interview we have.
Well, I love hearing that, just with you getting, back to it and stuff like that. And just, yeah, really was happy to see that announcement. And just in general, just good to see you have like a clean bill of health and stuff like that. I mean, so important for sure. But I have taken up a bit of your time and everything, man. I appreciate you, giving me a bit of time in the schedule to chat before this big one, though. But just in the interest of being mindful of the rest of your schedule, is there anything you might want to add as a parting thought as we're kind of wrapping up here?
Well, no, it's just not in my nature to quit. Like for me, getting hurt while having like my first loss, it almost looked like Pat lost once and then he walked away from the sport. That was never it. It was my injury, right? Like it was my injury. I always had the intention to at least come back, at least again, once more. Like I was never just somebody who's just gonna. I'm not a quitter, right? So, yeah, it took me a few years to fix myself, but, I did it, and I'm proud of that, and I feel like I'm on the right track. So, I don't know if I answered your question, but I just wanted to say that.
No, you very much did, and I think that's a great parting thought as well, and it's cool to see that track leading to this destination of December 16th, Unified MMA 48. One stop on the track at the very least. And yeah, should be a good one against a very tenured opponent in Michael Hill. So yeah, definitely excited for all of that. And again, to reiterate, I appreciate you making a bit of time before this one and looking forward to being there and checking out the fight when it goes down, man.
Awesome. Thank you, Dylan.